Hello, and welcome to the Next Level Loan Officers Podcast, the number one podcast for loan officers by loan officers,
with real originators in the trenches, just like you every single day.
If they can go there, how come I can't go there? Well, you can't.
Like if you don't water your plants, you don't have future crops. You can't feed your family. You can't make a living. This is watering your crops.
You have to find your community and you have to dig in.
If it wasn't for you guys, I can tell you, probably my trajectory would have been a completely different one.
We'll see you on the next Level Loan Officers Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Next Level Loan Officers Podcast, the number one podcast for loan officers by loan officers,
with real originators in the trenches, just like you every single day.
If they can go there, how come I can't go there? Well, you can't.
Like if you don't water your plants, you don't have future crops. You can't feed your family. You can't make a living. This is watering your crops.
You have to find your community and you have to dig in.
If it wasn't for you guys, I can tell you, probably my trajectory would have been a completely different one.
We'll see you on the next Level Loan Officers Podcast.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Zalmanoff, and welcome to this month's Business Igniter. My co-host Shane Kidwell is here with me. And, Shane, we have an amazing presenter this month. And Tammy Butler with Mortgage Currency. A phenomenal wealth of knowledge, goes so well with what we do inside of Next Level, laying the base of the foundation for what every loan officer needs to succeed, and especially with what loan officers need to succeed moving forward. We have Tammy. She's a publisher of Mortgage Currency. Shane, are you excited to have her as I am?
Yeah, Sean. So first and foremost, we don't advertise things that we don't believe in. Both of us are paying members of Mortgage Currency. So we want to put that out there for people out there. This is not something that we're promoting that we don't believe in. We believe in it. We've been members for years. I love the content that they provide. I would challenge everybody in the virtual room. There are really 4 key disciplines that make a top producing successful LO. Leadership is obviously important, having that mindset, managing your team, having a cadence to what you do, a maturity about you. And Sean and I, we've been through the journey in mortgage. And I can honestly say that leadership was the thing that was the hardest for me to learn. But before you can truly be a leader, you have to market effectively, right? You have to actually be able to grow a business. Like, nobody likes the leader who's never done what they're telling you to do, right? So marketing is key to being a good leader. But before you can market effectively, you have to be good at sales. You have to be that salesman or woman that knows how to communicate, knows how to put yourself in the right room, network effectively, speak effectively. But the most important thing in origination, none of those things go well long-term if you don't have a basic general knowledge. When I got into the business in 2009, nobody helped me with anything. I didn't have a team of people producing my loans. It was Shane and Google looking up guidelines. And I was super dangerous with what I was doing because I didn't have a platform like Mortgage Currency, giving me guidance, giving me direction, a live body I could talk to, underwriters on call that are there driving information every day. So although you may say, and Tammy and I and Sean were talking before this, although it doesn't sound sexy to talk about general knowledge, I've never seen a great professional athlete that doesn't have a great nutrition program. You don't hear about it. They don't advertise it. It's not on the commercials. But somebody who doesn't have the foundation isn't going to win long term. And this is a market for resetting what you work on, resetting your knowledge base. The days of just going off and golfing and passing everything to somebody else and expecting to win that deal with a competitive rate, I would argue are gone. The days of being an operator, a professional, somebody who is truly an executive at what they do is here. Tammy, I'm super excited for you to share. Sean and I are going to kind of step backstage and let you get into this. But before you share your presentation, give the audience the 1 minute back of your baseball card. Now that we're getting into baseball season, who is Tammy Butler? Because you're more than just a publisher of Mortgage Currency. And I'd love it if the audience could get to know your history a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, there's a big history there, and I'll do it in less than a minute. Try to get that synopsis in. So started out as in the back shop of auditing and closing loans, ended up as a top producing originator, doing over $50 million a year when loan amounts were $100,000. So that's a lot of volume.
It's $300 million in today's market.
Right. We did. I've done everything from technology development, own the largest training school in this industry, managed 200 originators at one time. So you name it, I've done it in this industry. I get it. I know where you're at. And I know, just like you guys know, the way that we had to learn those 4 disciplines the hard way in order to get to where we are. So let's shorten the learning curve, right? Let's make it easier for people getting in so that if they listen, they don't have to go through walking on the hot coals like we did.
So Tammy, that's why Mortgage Currency is so easy to use, and unlike other platforms that I've had for guidelines before, because of your origination and sales management experience, it all makes so much sense now.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We don't like that vertical search. I call the vertical search when I have to go to Fannie Mae.
Yes.
Then I have to go to Freddie Mac. Then I have to go to FHA and look up something, right? I want everything aggregated right there so I can see it.
Amen to that. Well, I'm going to let you get in it. Sean and I are going to exit stage left to let you take the spotlight, and we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm Tammy Butler, And today we're going to talk about cracking the code on these underwriting guidelines. So let's go ahead and get started with that topic. I think you're going to find it interesting and hopefully very helpful to your career. Okay, so I'm going to quote here Brian Woodard, who came up with a very great sports analogy. Even though I have 3 sons, I'm really not into sports and they laugh at me all the time. But I like what Brian said. He said, if you don't know the rules, you can't win the game. And that's really true of sports or our industry or anything that you're doing. Because if you don't master those rules, which they do not teach you in your NMLS classes, then you are not going to win this game long term. All right, so what do we need to do to master guidelines? What does this actually mean? Well, the first thing we need is we need to find answers quickly. And finding answers quickly means that we don't have to go searching for hours for questions, right? We have a question, we can ask someone. Shana talked about Googling, which can give you a lot of wrong answers. You know, there's a myriad of ways we could do it, or we could have a great resource. We can find something quickly. It's also a way for us to get unique deals done. So you're never going to master your market, especially if you're newer, if you aren't the person who's going in and basically getting all the leftovers, cleaning those up and making it happen. And then as you progress and maybe go a little bit further, you can have loan officer assistants who are able to do that for you and grow your business even more. So being able to get the unique deals done, not just the easy peasy ones that come along, that's the key. It keeps your reputation intact. You know, I could never understand the originator who didn't try to master the guidelines, because essentially you're throwing a deal into processing or underwriting, and you're wondering if you got the underwriting guidelines correct, and then potentially waiting for it to blow up in your face. And that's going to destroy your reputation with 2 important referral sources. The person who sent it to you, which may be relying on this loan to close, like a real estate agent, or the reputation of a financial planner, as an example, or an accountant. And the other referral source is your consumer, right? I mean, consumers done well can ultimately build your business to the point where you don't need to do a whole lot because you're on autopilot, because you've got so many consumers that you're working with and they appreciate what you've done that they continue to send you business. You do what others can't, and this wins referrals. So a lot of new originators, especially, have trained thousands of new originators. And they'll say, well, what can I do to get these real estate agents to pay attention to me? Well, one of the things is when somebody doesn't feel like doing a deal that requires a little bit of work, you do it and you get it done. Or if you can't do it at that point, you use the guidelines to help mentor that person along until the consumer's ready. Also, bottom line, your bottom line improves, right? We are in this, most of us are 100% commission. And if you're 100% commission, then you want your bottom line to grow. And finally, getting referrals is a lot easier. Once you establish this reputation as what I call the subject matter expert as it relates to financing a home. And notice I'm going to say financing a home, because I hate it when they use the word mortgage, which means death contract in Latin. I hate it when they use, hey, come to me to get a mortgage. No, come to me to get home financing, because that sounds a lot better. Okay, so the NMLS classes, they put you through a lot of stuff, mainly compliance, some basic calculation, but they don't teach you the 3 most important elements to your success: sales, marketing, mastering the guidelines. But I think what a lot of people fail to understand is that you use guidelines to your referral base to position yourself as a subject matter expert, and it's by far the best marketing that you can do. So what does that look like? Well, when I started as an originator, I went to the real estate brokers and I said, hey, if you have any new agents, I've got a great series of classes. We're going to do FHA, we're going to do VA one week, we're going to do conventional the next week, and then maybe some other class that I came up with. Put those together and went to town. All of those new real estate agents eventually became experienced like I was, and I had more business than I knew what to do with. Why? Because they looked to me as the subject matter expert on home financing, which is exactly what I wanted, right? Think home financing, think Tammy Butler. That was the goal of the marketing. And in your social stream, when you're sharing educational information, when you're informing people about how to get a loan, that by far has the most impact than anything that you can do. So what have top producers learned the hard way? Now, we're going to teach you the things they've learned the hard way. And you have two choices. You can either say, maybe I should explore that and take advantage of their knowledge that they've had over these years, or maybe I should ignore that and learn it the hard way. So I hope that you're the first loan officer and says, maybe I should explore this. I'm going to use an old phrase here. Riches are in the niches. You know, you've heard that for years, but it is so true, even in today's world. So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you are going into a market and you are trying to compete on the easy stuff, right? Just the normal FHA, maybe some VA, conventional types of loans. The competition in that space is enormous. And all of a sudden you find yourself competing with a bunch of loan officers. You find yourself, trying to compete on rate, trying to produce your merits over their merits and all of that. Go into some of the niches in your market. And in one of the follow-up classes that we're going to be doing to this series has to do with finding those niches in your market. So I hope that you're there to, pay attention to that. That's a great follow-up class that we'll be offering. Now, as quoted earlier, if you don't know these rules, don't even bother playing in the game. Loan officers come in and out of this business so frequently. It gets great, people come in. It gets bad, people go out. Or some just commiserate over the fact that they don't have any business and they don't know why. They don't have any business because they didn't treat it as a business and work on their business. And part of that is understanding those rules. Your income and your reputation depend on it. All of the top producers that I know, and I know a whole bunch of them, and especially the ones that I coached many years ago, they know one thing to be true. If I understand how to utilize and get loans approved and do all the things necessary to make everybody happy when it comes to that, my income goes up, my reputation goes up, I get lots of consumers that refer business to me, and my ability to have to go out and grind market every day isn't as much as it was in the beginning. Choosing the right place to work, super essential, right? Do you even know what your market is offering? Does that line up with the people that you're working with in your company? Do you know about their overlays and the underwriting restrictions that you have there? These are all the things you want to explore. That's just as important, if not more important, than the basis points that you're getting on each loan. And saving a client means saving the loan. So when you save a client and you have become the hero to the consumer and to the real estate agent, then all of a sudden you're gold. And now they're going to start to pay attention to you because all of the experiences that they've had cumulatively, and this is including top producing real estate agents as an example, a lot of them have had very bad experiences with originators. So when you come in and you're able to make good on what you talk about and what you promise, well, that's a golden opportunity for them to refer some business that might be a little bit easier for you. You need to understand also, and I can't stress this enough, how to intelligently discuss your conditions or your rejections with an underwriter. Now, here's what I always just tell my originators. As salespeople, we're not necessarily prone to what I'll call heavy logic, right? But underwriters, their personality is more heavy logic. And so we have to understand the way that they think in order to present our case, in order to get some conditions gone, or in order to discuss a rejection intelligently with the underwriter. And so we'll give you a few tips here later on as well. And then, of course, the importance of a great resource. Now, what is a resource? Well, certainly the reason that I purchased Mortgage Currency about 6 years ago from someone that I knew that started it. It was a small little company, but when I saw what they had done by aggregating the guidelines versus this vertical search of having to go to every agency, I knew there was something special here because it shortened my ability to try to find something that I needed to find. And that's the goal. Find a great resource. Whether it's with us or someone else, find a great resource that you can rely on. All right, next thing you need to know, the automated underwriting systems are not king. All right, you have input mistakes. Any of you who have taken the tutorial classes with DU, if you haven't, I strongly recommend those. Your income calculations can be wrong, or you just keep running it to see what happens. But when you do that, you're creating red flags to the algorithms. And now the algorithms are going to make it harder to get that loan approved. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that this is what's going on behind the scenes, or you learn this later on down the road when you've had to deal with it a few times. So remember, automated underwriting is great, right? Nothing wrong with it. But if you have stuff that you input incorrectly or put in the wrong spot, if you're not solid on your income calculations, or as an example with, people say, oh, I don't use the Freddie Mac feature where I can upload my tax returns. Why not? Well, because they're going to look at a 2-year period. I just want them to look at the 1-year period, which is what the guidelines are, right? So there's all these little tips and tricks that you learn over time. And the one thing I can tell you about automated underwriting systems, as advanced as they are not powerful enough for you to just rely on them exclusively. All right, so let's talk about things that we need to stop. Relying on what others tell you. So someone tells you, you have a scenario and somebody tells you something and you don't bother to check it out for yourself. You lost a loan. Somebody else did it. What do you mean somebody else got that done? Do they have a special program I don't have? No, they probably have more knowledge than you have on a particular subject. So you don't want to rely on what others tell you. You want to become the subject matter expert. Using social media to solicit answers. We go onto social media quite a bit. Our entire staff will be in groups on social media. And we monitor the trends to kind of see what's happening, what people need, what they want for our future development stuff. And as a result of that, we'll see people ask scenario questions all day long. And it's horrifying to see some of the answers, right? Because you'll get 15 different opinions on an underwriting guideline. Or somebody will post a piece of the guideline, but not the whole guideline. Because if you've looked at guidelines, you'll find those little rabbit holes, right? We say, okay, here's what it says about this, but then you miss the part where they referred you to this section, which has bearing on the section you just read. And so as a result, what ends up happening is they get led down the wrong path. Okay, so social media means that I have to post the question. Potentially somebody could copy that and get it out to my referral sources and say, look what they don't know. I then have to look through all the answers, and still I have to double verify that, right? Because there are such a disparate answers coming in. People have different opinions on it. All right, marketing for the easy stuff. When you do that, as I said earlier, you create more competition. So if I'm going to go out there and just do the regular run-of-the-mill Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, easy stuff, meaning W-2 employees with great assets and easy pay stubs, I'm going to have a lot of competition. And if I'm going to have a lot of competition, that means I'm going to have to really dance when it comes to things like rates or other issues. Constantly asking your office staff or about your scenarios, or sending things to your scenario desk and waiting for answers. Okay. When someone asks you a question in the field, whether it's your consumer or your referral source, you may not be able to answer them immediately. But the goal here is to get an answer quickly for somebody, right? It's to get back to them immediately so that you sound like you know what you're talking about, even if you don't. So having that resource that makes you look really smart, even if you're brand new, and able to position yourself as that subject matter expert is paramount in establishing your credibility with that referral source. You miss a lot of market opportunities if you don't have knowledge, right? So different things like a 1031 exchange. What does that mean? You've never heard of that. Well, it's a great way for you to educate your real estate agent or the investor groups in your area about, this really beneficial IRS regulation that allows them to defer capital gains for lifetimes. Okay, and I'll just leave that there. But that's an example of understanding some of your market opportunities versus just showing up and saying the same thing as everyone else. And of course, missing loan opportunities because you don't have a knowledge, right? So something seems a little hard, or you went on social media and somebody says, hey, you can't do that, and you believe them, or we'll go into other reasons in the guideline don'ts. Do not rely on an investor scenario desk or an AE. Two things going on there. The investor scenario desk is basing it off of their guidelines. You need to understand agency guidelines. Agency is the basis for all that we do. And many times, if you understand agency guidelines, the investors will give you an exception even if they have an overlay. Now that's a deal maker right there. So the AE or the scenarios desk may say, we don't do that. We will not do single wide manufactured homes. Well, okay, but Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they will. And here's the guideline. Will you guys give me an exception? And just about every AE rep that I talk to says, if it's a decent file, we're going to give them an exception. Okay, so never forget that. Don't rely on them for answers to lose a deal. Understand the core guidelines from the agency and then utilize that to get an exception with an investor that you want to work with. Do not use the investor guideline databases for true guidelines. People say, oh, well, I can go here for free and I can search things and it's going to give me the answer. It will give you the answer, but it's the answer based on that investor's guidelines, not the agency. Big difference. Just what I discussed, right? We have to know the core knowledge so that we know if A, we can do it with another investor, or B, if we can ask for an exception. And do not believe we don't overlay the agency guidelines. I don't care what any AE is telling you. We actually host investor guidelines on the Mortgage Currency site, and every single one has some sort of overlay or something that they don't like. It may be minimal, there may be only a few, but they will have overlays. Again, agency knowledge is what you're seeking. Not all scenario desks are created equal. Now, people ask me, why is it that some of the top producers in this country, even though they work for a big company and have phenomenal resources where the companies spend millions of dollars a year trying to produce resources for originators, why do they subscribe to your platform? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, the information that we're putting out is deeper, more clear, and takes away that aggregation. The second thing is they know that their scenario desks are many times staffed by junior underwriters. And a junior underwriter, given a complex situation, isn't necessarily going to know how to answer your question, but they want to keep their reputation intact, so they're going to give you an answer. Now flip that over to our scenario desk, where our minimum requirement is 25 plus years. 25 plus years, right? It's nothing they haven't seen. And so that's the difference in a solid scenario desk or in a scenario desk where you might have somebody who's a junior person and misses something. And then don't argue with an underwriter without being solid with your facts. Okay? So you don't agree with them, you think it's wrong, but let's get solid on our facts based on the agency guidelines in order to have that conversation about getting this loan approved. All right, Guideline do's. When somebody says we can't do it because Fannie Mae won't allow it or FHA won't allow it, always ask them for a guideline reference. Where is that in the guidelines? I appreciate you passing that on to me so that I can look at it and learn more. Now, really what you're doing is you are learning more because maybe you did miss that. But in addition to that, you're also back checking what they're doing. So maybe their facts are wrong. Maybe their interpretation is wrong. And because guidelines change so frequently, it's very possible that you get someone that conditions a file and something changed last week and they didn't realize that. Always ask them for ideas to restructure a loan. Say, okay, I understand that you can't take this for whatever reason. Do you have any ideas for restructuring of this loan? Many of the underwriters that you're working with, they know how they would do it, how they would restructure it. Ask for their ideas. Maybe they've been doing this a long time and have some wonderful ideas for you. And then, of course, always ask for an exception to the overlay for a good file, right? Lenders aren't necessarily concrete solid in their overlays. If it's a loan that makes sense and it's something that they can make a profit on, chances are good they're going to give you an exception to the overlay. So what's the worst thing? We're all in sales, right? The worst thing that can happen if you ask is that somebody says no. Well, big deal. We deal with that every day, okay? But the best thing that could happen is that they say yes. So always, always ask. Next thing you want to do is dominate that gray area. Now, the gray area in the guidelines, I was cracking up. A few weeks ago, someone said to me that mortgage guidelines are black and white. And that told me that's a person that really doesn't understand the mortgage guidelines because they are far from black and white. There are a lot of gray areas, what we call lender interpretation or underwriter interpretations. And these interpretations, depending on who you get, may vary. So you may have one underwriter that believes one thing, but another underwriter that will believe another thing. And all of this can be based on all sorts of things, their background, the problems that they've had with agencies, their biases. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things in there as to why their interpretations may vary. So we want to document our interpretation. So if we're in a gray area where it comes up to lender interpretation, here are some things that you can do to kind of shore that up. Cite the guideline. You know, here in Fannie Mae section whatever, here's the guideline. In our charts, we put that. So if you have a manufactured home and it's on, you know, a data plate, you're going to know the exact section of the guideline. Demonstrating borrower stability. Okay, why do you think that this borrower is stable? Why do you think that this makes a good credit risk, that you would actually loan your own money on this particular file? Add documentation that are beyond the guidelines. Now, sometimes we like to keep the file thin because we don't want to open up too many cans of worms, right? So we want to keep it thin so that we don't put something else in there that creates another question. But really look at what can I put in here to document this gray area as to why they should believe what I believe. Search the agency FAQs. And a lot of originators don't do this. You know, oh, I just asked Polly. Okay, sometimes Polly's not exactly correct. Polly will pull up a piece of the guideline and it'll miss other pieces of the guideline, but it will also sometimes miss the FAQs. The FAQs are questions that come from lenders, right? These are trending questions that they get all the time on the gray areas of the guidelines. So the FAQs are an important thing to take a look at because not only are you going to learn from the FAQs as they come out, but you'll also possibly be able to see Fannie Mae's interpretation of a very gray area. And then finally, seek a second opinion from another expert. All right, whether that's the loan scenario desk, whether it's, you know, somebody that is a colleague of yours, whatever it is, seek a second opinion and see if they're kind of feeling the same way that the underwriter is feeling, or if they think that you might be able to do it, but present these other documents and you'll get it through. All right, so people say, well, gosh, there's so much to learn. Where do I start? Especially with new people. There are certain areas that we've found that are so misunderstood, yet so easy to learn, that it's a great foundation to just set aside some time and learn them. Okay? VA sales concessions, 100%, absolutely positively, one of the most misunderstood thing out there. We have a short 7-minute class that clears it all up, right? 7 minutes. And now all of a sudden you see things with VA sales concession that go, well, wait a minute. What do you mean the seller can pay off the borrower's judgments? What do you mean they can pay off some debt in order to get the loan qualified? I mean, there's all sorts of little tricks in here that you have to understand the difference with the sales concessions. Interested party restrictions gets people all the time, especially with programs like FHA. So with interested party restrictions, you know, an interested party in the transaction, Fannie and Freddie might restrict something like, you know, gift funds as an example, whereas FHA gets a little bit more granular and they actually restrict loan to values depending on the interested party. So understanding that is going to save you a lot of deals. Rental income calculations and those loan to value restrictions. Okay, rental income can get really complex. Is it a boarder? Is it retained departure? What kind of history I need to have? What sort of documentation? There's a lot of variances in the guidelines when it comes to rental income. Self-employed borrowers get solid. More and more people are becoming self-employed. Even if you only start small, I'm going to understand the Schedule C, right? Which is what a lot of self-employed people are under, small businesses especially. I'm only going to understand that. Get solid there. Then I want you to move on to other things like the K1s and the partnerships and understanding those a little bit more. The FHA 100-mile rule and second to FHA loans. Again, another area. There are exceptions to the 100-mile rule. Do you know what those are? Well, if you follow Mortgage Currency on our platforms, it's free. Just go to Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn and follow us, because each week we put out a guideline tip, and we also put out a question of the week that you can learn from. And we do the same thing inside of the Next Level community. So if you're part of that community, pay attention, learn little bits and pieces so that you get a very strong knowledge. 2 to 4 units, just finished a chart on that. That was mind-blowing. We thought it would be an easy chart. It easily took, 30 to 40 hours to put together with a lot of experts. But 2 to 4 unit financing is a phenomenal niche. I'm out here in the Chicago market. It is phenomenal niche in this market. May not fit where you're at, but you're going to find your other niche if you go to these follow-up classes that we're going to have. Co-borrowers, occupants, non-occupants, what works, what doesn't work, how much income can I use, what's the loan to value, all of those things in co-borrowers. Derogatory credit, it seems like everybody has a problem, right? So understanding the derogatory credit, what is and is not acceptable, very important. And I'm going to tell you, this renovation options, if I was originating today, I would be all over this in most markets, because there are a lot of markets that have an inventory of homes that are, need a little work, need some updating, and they're not selling, right? But you come in with these renovation options where people are able to buy these homes and not worry about a house payment for 6 months while the renovation is going on, and then move into a house that's been restored and it's all one loan. Folks, that is a huge and wonderful niche. And I know many originators that have taken just that one little program, understood it inside and out, and really built a strong top producer market for themselves. Non-U.S. citizens, very confusing topic. That happens to be something that is my specialty. I originated in the Washington, D.C. market, so I learned this very long ago, what is and is not. But I'm going to tell you what, it's not the visa type. And we're always saying, is this visa acceptable? It's not the visa type, even though your lenders will present that to you. You have to understand how to present a non-U.S. citizen based on the underwriting guidelines, not the visa type. And then, of course, income calculations. You get that wrong nowadays, Fannie and Freddie are coming after you with the DTI hit. All right. We didn't have that before. This is all new stuff. So you need to get solid on those income calculations so you don't have to make the dreaded phone call of, hey, I messed this up. And so now we need to charge you more in interest rate. Okay, so finally, what are the top tips to become this guideline master? Well, time block study each day for about 30 minutes, right? Put this in your time block. If you don't know what I'm talking about with time block, then you need to look that up because time blocking is really important to get a lot accomplished. You should never start your day with, gee, I wonder what I'm going to do today. It should already be built in. Learn to document your gray areas, which you talked about. Master that income calculation. Secure, reliable resources. Reliable, not just resources, but reliable. And hint, social media groups aren't necessarily your reliable sources. So we want good, reliable sources on guidelines, rule updates, what changed, what's happening, questions and answers from others, and educational marketing materials, because by far the best way to market your business is to position yourself as that subject matter expert. So you're constantly educating your audience about what we do and how to finance a home. Learn your market niches and become the expert, and then teach referral sources so that you solidify your knowledge and expand your business. So ask yourself this: how much income are you willing to lose before you understand the necessity of mastering your guidelines? Because I can tell you, hindsight's 2020, every top producer is going to tell you this. We've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars by not knowing this first. You now know this. So now it's up to you to say, I'm going to run with it and make it happen, or I'm going to ignore it like the rest of them and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in income. Now, I want to tell you about 2 follow-up sessions that we're having after this. One is May 11th, and it's a market assessment about finding those acres of diamonds in your market. So it's looking and exploring your market and teaching you how to do that so that you can find the niches and know what you need to focus on when it comes to financing so that you can eliminate a vast majority of your competition. That's the goal. And then follow-up session 2 is taking that further, which is on May 18th. And we're going to talk about that niche and how to create it so that you can kind of ignite what you're doing in your area versus doing what everyone else is doing. And so with that, Sean and Shane, those are my tips. Those are the best things that I can offer about underwriting guidelines.
You know, Tammy, if there's a loan officer right now who can't devote a few hours a week to mastering their craft, I mean, I want to know what they're doing. But one of the things that I did in 2008 and 2009, I know we had some nice refis that came our way, but my origination career took off. You know, I live in St. Louis. We've got a lot of old houses here, and I mastered the 203K in the home style loan, and I was that guy. And that was before comp changed and everything too. And you actually could really get paid for your expertise and knowledge on a really challenging loan to do that you had to control a lot of third parties inside of as well. It's still a great loan today. But I heard for years afterwards, people tell me, every group I'd go to, don't do 203K. I was like, I mean, I'm closing $20 million a year in 203K loans on top of another 30 or 40 million. And the most of that 30 or 40 million I'm closing is because of the 203Ks that I'm closing as well.
That's right.
Smart. Yeah, I love that because there's several different conduits or ways that you can kind of grow your business, and you can go through the traditional loan conduit where you start there. But I love having a niche, and the riches are in the niches. And like, as we all feel currently, if you have one bucket of business, that bucket got significantly smaller in the last 12 to 24 months. Now, it's not to say that having 5 buckets, your business wouldn't necessarily be less today than it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago. That was an anomaly. If you look at charts of the market in 2020, 2021 versus the rest of time, it's a blip. And what I love is talking about having a true knowledge base, understanding how to operate within guidelines. I mean, I was a full-time fireman and a full-time originator growing my business. And the reality is most people, if I can say this, half-ass their knowledge. They don't really take the time to understand things at a professional level. And so by half-assing their knowledge, by cutting corners, it actually takes them way longer to close a loan. Mm-hmm. If you submit a clean file, it could be a 569 FICO FHA manual underwrite. If you submit a clean file, you're going to get that through the system pretty quickly, right? And, like Sean, to your point on renovation loans, you're like, oh man, those are terrible. They're terrible if you don't understand them and are not educated. I actually did a lot of construction loans, one-time closed construction loans. Oh my gosh, don't touch construction loans. I made a ton of money, built a ton of networking opportunities through construction loans. I guess the point of this is to say, have a core knowledge base, have a true professional understanding. I laughed before I got into this business at how much money mortgage professionals were making. They make more, we make more than doctors, than rocket scientists that work for NASA. Shouldn't we have that same level of knowledge in our industry that they have in theirs?
Amen.
Yep.
Well, guys, first and foremost, Tammy, thank you. This was awesome. She is a wealth of knowledge. What I love about the Next Level community and our pro community especially is Tammy and high-level professionals are there engaging, sharing their knowledge. If you're in this market and you feel like you're on an island by yourself and you see the tide rising and the shore shrinking, it's because you're on an island by yourself. There's no better way to jump through any market, go through any craziness than by doing it with others that are like-minded. And the Next Level community is an incredible tribe of people. Sean and I, obviously, we're two of the founders, but Tammy, outside looking in, has seen what the community can do to educate, to uplift, to build bridges for people in crazy markets. This is an opportunity. This is a hand up for anyone on this call now to join the Next Level Pro community. It's $197 a month. Your entire yearly membership strategically is less than what you make closing one extra loan a year. Guys, this conversation alone will help you close a deal. Whether it's a reminder of something you had learned before that you never implemented because you got too busy, it's a new idea that helps you grow in a new way in your market, or it helps you expand into other markets. Take the initiative, join the community, do something. You're not going to win by going at it alone. We all know that in our careers and experiences, and I would just highly recommend everybody to take the opportunity.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in and say that what you've created is necessary in our industry and is so wonderful for originators, because all that we had before was maybe a Facebook group or potentially, spending thousands a month on it with a coach, or, other opportunities maybe internally within a company. But what I love about this is that people are sharing in the community and they're from all over the place. And these are high quality, top producing people that are sharing their ideas with others to kind of give everyone a hands up. So kudos to you guys. I love what you've done.
Yeah, guys, you get all that. You get 5 live calls a week. May 11th and May 18th, you have 2 more classes that Tammy's teaching. If your membership isn't already paid for, she'll pay for it again for you when you join us there. We created this to make it a no-brainer for you, and our mission is just to continue to add more value.
Well, guys, thanks. This was great. Tammy, we will see you back inside the community. Hopefully, we will see all of you inside the community. Be safe out there. Make it a great day. Be a true expert in your field. And that's my challenge that I'm leaving everybody with today, and to myself, is to level up my own game, level up my own knowledge. Thanks again, Tammy. It's been a blessing. We'll see you guys on the other side.